Hello, friends, and let's get started.
Alex was distracted from his thoughts when Lauren suddenly stopped talking. She was looking over his shoulder, and there was a slight tinge of confusion in her gaze. Alex turned around and saw a man in a dark blue suit walking confidently towards their table. His steps were unhurried, as if he knew for sure that he was expected there. The stranger looked expensive, a thin strip of Italian fabric, perfect cut of his jacket, shoes polished to a shine. His smile, smooth, serene, made his face look like a mask. His jaw was slightly raised, like a man used to being taller than the others. "Good evening," he said softly, stopping in front of me. "I'm sorry to intrude, but I have something interesting to offer you." Lauren raised an eyebrow, a half-smile playing on her lips. Alex frowned, leaning forward a little. A dubious beginning. What was absurd? "We don't know each other," Alex said with restraint, but his gaze had hardened. "Who are you?" "Never mind." The man brushed off as easily as if they were discussing the weather. He kept smiling, as if he was testing their reaction to this unobtrusive challenge. "My name is Victor, and I am prepared to pay you a very substantial sum for one night with your wife." Those words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Alex looked at him silently, not knowing if he had heard correctly. Lauren flinched slightly and, covering her mouth with her hand, burst into a short laugh. It seemed like a nervous reaction, a way to defuse the ridiculousness of the moment. Alex threw a look of bewilderment at her. Lauren was still smiling, but her eyes sought answers from her husband. "Is this some kind of joke?" Alex asked coldly, slowly rising from the table. Victor didn't even move. He stood motionless, like a man who was used to difficult negotiations. The smile didn't leave his face, but his eyes looked serious, even appraising. "Not a joke at all," he said quietly. "I like you both from the moment I walked into the restaurant. This offer is real, and the sum, believe me, is impressive." Alex felt his fingers clench into a fist. He stepped forward, close to Victor, his voice lower, almost growling. "Get out before I kick you out of here." Victor lowered his eyes slightly for a second, as if assessing Alex's height, his strong shoulders, his tense arms. Then he smiled again. "Don't get emotional," he said, carefully pulling a business card from his inside jacket pocket. "I wouldn't want to cause any inconvenience. Just think about it. If you change your mind, my number is here." He placed the card on the table in front of Lauren. She watched silently, making no attempt to remove it. Her face no longer looked relaxed. Victor nodded, turned around, and walked calmly toward the exit as if nothing unusual had happened. Alex stared after him for a while longer, trying to figure out what had just happened. It felt as if their world had shaken in an instant, as if the fragile wall of the usual way of life had cracked. He wanted to snatch the card off the table and tear it up, but Lauren's gaze stopped him. She was staring at the card as if it were something dangerous and alluring at the same time. "It's strange, isn't it?" She spoke after a pause. Her voice sounded uncertain, as if she didn't know what she was feeling. "Probably some eccentric millionaire. That's funny. You're not going to take it seriously, are you?" Alex didn't answer. He looked at the card and felt something dark and inexplicable boiling in him. The amount of money was too large, the look too confident. It was an offer that seemed so easy to refuse. But it had already settled in his head like a shaky question, like a tiny but poisonous splinter. Alex opened the apartment door and let Lauren in. She kicked off her shoes, exhaled, and headed straight for the kitchen, leaving Alex standing in the hallway. He closed the door and leaned against the wall, cupping his hands around his face. His body was still tense as a string, but instead of relief, he felt only growing irritation. "Would you like some tea?" Lauren asked loudly from the kitchen. Alex slowly raised his head. She acted as if nothing had happened. No serious conversation, no attempt to explain herself. Just tea. He sighed heavily, walked into the living room, and sat down on the couch. His fingers clutched his knees. His palms were sweating. "Lauren," he called out, keeping his eyes on the floor. "Can you tell me why you're so amused by this?" There was the sound of water pouring from the kitchen, then the clinking of cups. She appeared in the doorway a few moments later, holding 2 steaming mugs. There was a sparkle in her eyes, as if he had just told her a funny joke. She set one mug on the coffee table in front of him and sat down on the armrest of the couch. What's there to explain? She shrugged. The situation was ridiculous, and I couldn't take it seriously. The man had just lost his mind. Ridiculous? Alex raised his head sharply. You couldn't believe it? What about the fact that you were literally giggling at that moment? It looked like, I don't know, you even liked it. She frowned and sipped her tea carefully. Liked it? She interjected, shaking her head slightly. You don't understand. It just sparked curiosity. I don't know, I was surprised. I'm with you, Alex. It was just a game. Don't be angry. Her voice became softer, almost apologetic, but it only made Alex feel worse. He jumped up from the couch and started pacing the room. A game? He repeated deftly. The man offered, he didn't even name the amount. Just left a business card as if we. He couldn't finish the sentence. She put the mug down, looking up at him. Alex, listen. Lauren stood up and stepped toward him, putting a hand on his shoulder. I don't care how much money he offered. It was just a crazy thing some stranger did. He means nothing to me, and now you're acting like I'm seriously considering it. Alex looked at her face. Her calmness, the almost tenderness in her voice, all of it confused him. He felt a ball of contradictions growing inside him. He turned away so he wouldn't snap again. You don't understand anything, he said at last. You're laughing, you're joking, but I'm not amused. The man didn't look like he was just crazy. He was confident. He acted like he knew what you were going to say, how you were going to react. And what pisses me off the most is that he chose us. You. Why? Lauren shrugged, examining her nails. Maybe because I'm pretty? She smiled, but it was a strained smile. Look, I don't know why he did it. It's the first time I've ever seen the man at all. Do you think we have some secret I don't know about? I think, Alex answered, finally turning to her, that I can't get out of my head. He walked to the bedroom, and Lauren was left standing in the middle of the living room. After a few seconds, she returned to the couch and picked up the mug again. Her hand trembled slightly, though her face still looked calm. In the bedroom, Alex opened the drawer of the bedside table and pulled out a business card. He looked at it as if it could answer all his questions. Why had this man chosen her? Why was he so sure Alex would even discuss this? Why did he walk away so easily, as if he knew he'd left something rather weighty behind? Alex scrutinized the card, feeling goosebumps running down his skin. The business card was simple, no frills. Name, phone number, and a neatly printed sentence. Call if you change your mind. No amount, no additional text. Just a succinct reminder that they had a choice. Or not. He tucked the card back away and closed the drawer, but he couldn't take his eyes off it for long. Lauren was right. He shouldn't have taken it seriously. But then why did that quiet, insistent voice in his head torment him? The voice that told him it wasn't that simple. The morning run was routine for Alex. Normally, nothing distracted him from his leisurely lap around the lake. Fresh air, steady breathing, minimal people in the way. It allowed him to release tension and feel in the moment. He was about to finish another lap when his gaze happened to catch on a figure in the distance. Standing on the path by the lake was Victor, suddenly as if out of nowhere. At first, Alex thought it was an accident, someone similar, a man just taking a stroll. But the closer he got, the more he recognized him. The same impeccably poised look, the same confident posture, and most annoying of all, a slight, completely tension-free smile. Victor stood with his hands behind his back, watching Alex approach. Alex slowed down for a moment, almost stopping himself. His heart was already pounding after the run, but now it was joined by a surge of something sharp, almost angry. He didn't want a confrontation, but he wasn't going to ignore this man either. Gritting his teeth, he strode determinedly straight toward Victor. You again? Alex said hoarsely when he was close enough. What are you doing here? Just taking a walk, Victor answered calmly, as if his appearance here was as common as the appearance of pigeons in the park. What do you want? Alex exhaled sharply. Last time I made it clear that you had crossed the line. What? Are you following me now? Victor only chuckled softly. Why would I be following you? Alex? He said as if they were discussing the weather. I've already made my offer. I just thought you might want to discuss the details. Alex felt himself starting to boil inside. He took a step closer so that he was face to face with Victor. I'm not going to discuss anything. How many times do I have to say it? His voice became harsh. You have insulted me, my wife, our family. Stay away from us. But Victor didn't back down. He stood there without moving, and that only made Alex more irritated. I don't want to inconvenience you, Victor continued calmly. Just think about it. Name your price. You know I can offer well over $1 million. More than $1 million? Alex suppressed a bitter laugh. Do you really think money will solve everything? Money decides a lot of things, Victor said softly. But not everything. I respect your position. I just wanted to let you know that I'm ready to move on. Move on? Alex took a step closer, feeling his chest getting heavier with growing anger. What's that supposed to mean? If you expect me to bend my back for your money, you're wrong. Maybe, Victor answered briefly, his gaze still calm, as if this were just an exchange on an important topic. Or perhaps you still don't fully understand what I have to offer. For a moment it seemed that Victor was going to say something else, but then he just tilted his head slightly, as if saying goodbye, and turned to leave. Alex stood motionless, fists clenched, watching his departing figure. A mixture of anger and confusion bubbled inside him. Again, this man had walked confidently into his life again leaving him with questions and muffled irritation. This time Alex wasn't going to let it go that easily. He walked home faster than usual. His steps were stiff, almost rough. He wanted to talk to Lauren, to make her take this situation seriously. His thoughts wavered between anger and incomprehension, but one thing was clear. He couldn't just ignore what was happening anymore. He walked into the apartment, determined to put everything in its proper place, but Lauren beat him to the punch. "Let's meet him," she said, as if she were discussing the choice of a restaurant for dinner. Alex froze. He expected outrage, anger, maybe even fear, but not this. There was something akin to excitement in her voice. "Are you serious?" he asked, trying to control his voice. "You want to go see that bastard?" "Just to see what he's after," she replied calmly, crossing her arms. "You can be there for him. Let's make sure he's just a rich, eccentric lunatic and not someone who's really threatening us." Alex stared at her, trying to catch a glimpse of what was behind that calmness. Curiosity? Or something else? He wanted to say no. He wanted to say it was crazy. But Lauren had already taken the initiative. And now they were standing at the entrance to the restaurant where Victor had invited her to meet him. The sun was setting, coloring the walls of the restaurant with warm shades of amber. Lauren entered the spacious room, where the soft light of the chandeliers blended with the soft melody of the piano. She looked around like a tourist who had just entered a luxurious hotel for the first time. Alex followed her, feeling a wave of irritation mixed with anxiety. "It's pretty nice here," Lauren said, turning her head slightly toward Alex. Her voice sounded not so much delighted as slightly excited, as if she had entered a world where anything was possible. Alex didn't answer immediately. His gaze darted around the room, searching for a familiar silhouette. Victor was already waiting for them at the far table, having chosen a place that overlooked the panoramic window. He was calm, his movements precise, like a chess player making move after move with a clear plan. "You can sit somewhere nearby," Lauren said, turning to Alex and interrupting his musings. "If you want. But don't worry, it'll be fine." He wanted to object, to tell her that the idea disgusted him, that he wanted to get her out of here right now. But instead, he just nodded, holding back the fire burning inside. He found a table on the other side of the room where he could see Lauren, but he and Victor couldn't see him. Victor stood up as Lauren approached. He extended his hand to her, which she hesitantly shook. Alex watched them sit down. Victor looked completely relaxed. His smile was friendly, but at the same time, there was an underlying confidence, as if he already knew how it was going to end. Lauren was saying something, her lips moving, but Alex couldn't hear the words. He focused on her expression, the way she leaned forward, her chin touching the palm of her hand. She wasn't laughing, but her eyes glittered. It seemed to Alex a glint of challenge, of interest. She was playing, but in that play he couldn't see her former calm equilibrium. Victor called for the waiter, and a moment later 2 glasses of champagne appeared on the table. Alex knew Lauren didn't drink champagne. Nevertheless, she took a glass, looked at Victor, and took a sip. He barely restrained the urge to go over and knock the glass out of her hands. Victor's fingers moved easily and precisely as he gestured to Lauren, to explain something. Alex saw Lauren bow her head, listening intently. He seemed to be capturing her attention more and more. The more Victor spoke, the more she nodded, the longer her smile became. Alex gripped the armrests of his chair. He wanted to intervene, to break up their conversation. But Lauren threw a glance over her shoulder, as if checking to see if everything was okay, and their eyes met. She looked calm, but Alex noticed the way her cheek twitched slightly, the way she quickly looked away. The movement gave her away more than the words. Victor raised his glass again, shook it slowly, and smiled at Lauren as if they had known each other for a long time. He leaned back in his chair as he continued to say something. Alex saw him pointing out the window at the stars that were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. His whole look said, "You're already mine, even if you haven't realized it yet." At one point, Victor placed his hand on the back of Lauren's chair. Her shoulders remained still, but Alex noticed her hand gripping the edge of the table, as if she was hesitating. When Lauren finally rose from the table, Alex quickly stood up to greet her. She walked over to him, smiling as if nothing had happened. "Well, you saw the whole thing," she said, clearly trying to stay calm. "He just wanted to talk. We hadn't decided anything." Alex looked at her, feeling something snap inside. Lauren didn't look scared, didn't look angry. She looked excited and intrigued. Victor stood up from the table, nodded briefly in their direction, picked up his coat, and moved toward the exit. His steps were as unhurried as his mannerisms. He didn't look back, didn't say a word. It wasn't goodbye. Alex silently looked after him. Questions swirled in his mind. Why was Lauren acting so calm? Why did she seem to enjoy this meeting? And why did he feel that this game was just beginning? The apartment was quiet, with only the faint sound of the refrigerator pulling from the kitchen. Lauren had long gone to meet a friend, leaving Alex alone. He sat at the table in the living room, his laptop in front of him. On the screen was an empty search box. He didn't want to do this, didn't want to pry into the dark corners of someone's life. But the way Victor was looking at Lauren, his confidence, his ease in intruding on their family life, was unsettling. Alex opened the social media tab and began typing in Victor's name. 15 minutes later, he already knew more than he expected. Victor was a wealthy investor, owner of several large companies. A man from another world, where money decided almost everything. One of the photos struck him as particularly strange. It showed Victor in a crowd of people in the university square. Alex froze, staring at the image. His heart raced when he realized that he could see a young Lauren in the background of the photo. Her hair, which he remembered from old scrapbooks, the brightly colored scarf. It couldn't be a coincidence. Alex quickly saved the picture and began to look further. The more he dug, the more he found strange overlaps. In one of the photos, Victor was standing next to a group of students, among whom Lauren was again glimpsed. In another, he was holding an old booklet with the university logo on it. Alex went to the alumni website and saw Victor's name on the list. He sighed, trying to put it all together in his head. This wasn't a random person, not just a rich stranger. He had been around Lauren in her past. They had gone to the same university, maybe even studied the same course. Alex got up from the table, walked to the window, and looked out at the city lights. Inside, everything was boiling. Alex closed his laptop, but the feeling of unease only increased. Now he knew Victor hadn't come into their lives by accident. It wasn't the whim of a rich man who saw a beautiful woman and decided to get her. No, it had been years in the making. Victor hadn't just chosen Lauren. He'd always wanted her. Alex grabbed his jacket and walked out of the apartment, not knowing where he was going. He couldn't just sit and digest everything alone. His feet led him to the nearest bar, but even alcohol couldn't drown out his thoughts. Victor had been following Lauren for a long time. He remembered her from university. But why hadn't she ever mentioned him? Had she forgotten? Or was she hiding it? Alex walked out of the bar, his steps quick and abrupt. He didn't know what to expect, but he felt that this night would be a turning point. He pushed open the apartment door, and almost immediately he realized everything had changed here. Lauren was sitting on the couch, her eyes focused on the screen of her phone. She didn't raise her head when he came in, but just kept flipping through something, smiling at the corners of her lips. Alex stood in the doorway, and watched as she seemed to be completely immersed in her world. "We need to talk," he finally said, trying not to make his voice sound too harsh. Lauren lifted her head. Her gaze met his, but there was no fear or guilt in it, just a slight weariness. "About what?" she asked calmly. "About him. About Victor. About what you really want." Alex took a step toward the couch. "We can't pretend things are the same. You have to choose, Lauren." She set the phone aside, looked at him carefully. Her face remained calm, but there was a flicker of regret in her eyes. "I've made up my mind," she said quietly. "I want to meet him again, to explain everything." Alex felt the tension in his chest turn into a heavy lump. He wanted to scream, to hit something, to break this vicious circle. But instead, he just nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "Then I'll go with you." The restaurant was filled with people, but Alex didn't hear their conversations or the clinking sounds of dishes. All his attention was focused on the figure of Victor, who was sitting by the window, looking at Lauren as if she were the only person in the room. Victor stood up as they approached, held out his hand to Lauren, and met Alex's gaze. Another strained smile, another show of superiority. "It's good to see you again," Victor said, looking solely at Lauren. "Alex, you look beautiful as always." Alex didn't answer. He sat down across from her, watching Victor's every move. Lauren was as calm as always, but Alex noticed her hands tense for a moment when Victor gestured to the waiter to order champagne. "Lauren," Victor began when they were alone, "I don't want to push anything. You know what you need. I'm just offering you an opportunity." "An opportunity to do what?" Lauren asked, trying to keep a level head, but there was a faint tinge of interest in her voice. Victor smiled wider. "The opportunity to live the life you've always dreamed of. No restrictions, no stress, no having to choose between your desires and reality. I'll give you anything you want." Alex stood up abruptly. "You can't buy it," he blurted out, his voice shaking with anger. "I won't let you do it." Victor looked at him with slight surprise, then shifted his gaze back to Lauren. "Alex, do you still think it's a matter of money?" "No, it's a matter of choice. What she decides to leave on her own." Victor leaned slightly toward Lauren, his voice quieter, almost a whisper. "It's just her decision, isn't it?" Lauren looked at him, then shifted her gaze to Alex. She stood between them, unmoving, as if she couldn't make the first move. Victor reached out to her, but didn't rush her. His confidence was like poison, slowly eating away at everything around him. Alex took a step closer, but froze. He realized that everything depended only on her. "Lauren," Alex said quietly, trying to hold her gaze. "I'm here. You should know that I won't give up, but the choice is yours." She stared at both of them for a while longer until the restaurant froze for her. Then she slowly raised her hand, but didn't take anyone's palm. Instead, she took a step back, glancing first at Victor, then at Alex, and said, "I need to think," and walked away. Lauren walked out of the restaurant, feeling her heart thumping deafeningly in her chest. The night air was cool, but she felt like everything inside was on fire. She couldn't believe things had gotten this far, that she was actually being put in front of a choice that could change her life. She caught a cab, got in the back seat, and barely had the car moved, pulled out her phone. Several missed calls from Alex. One unread message from Victor. "I'm waiting for you." No pressure. Lauren closed her eyes. Was it really that simple? She looked out the window again. The city lived its life, indifferent to her doubts. She knew where to go. Already knew her answer. Half an hour later, she stood at the panoramic window in Victor's luxurious penthouse, fingering her glass. In the reflection of the glass, she could see him sitting in his chair, not rushing her. He was letting her make the final decision for herself. But then why was there still something shaking inside her? Lauren fiddled nervously with the glass, its rim damp from her touch. Victor was silent, and she stared at the reflection of the city lights in the glass of the window. The view should have been impressive. Huge skyscrapers, an endless stream of cars, the lights of advertising casting soft reflections on the walls. But inside her, everything was boiling. "You said you were ready to try." Victor finally spoke, breaking the tense silence. His voice was soft, but there was a note of steel in it. Lauren slowly turned her head. Her eyes met his, and in that moment it was clear to her. He didn't hesitate. He was sure she would go with him. She hesitated, then brought the glass to her lips, but didn't take a sip. I'm still not sure. Victor leaned back in his chair. He looked relaxed, but Lauren could feel it. He was waiting. He wouldn't ask. He'd already laid everything on the table. Promises of a luxurious life, endless possibilities, a life without compromise. You can have anything you want, he said. Everything. The only question is whether you're willing to step out of your comfort zone. Those words stuck in her head like needles. She remembered Alex. Remembered the look in his eyes, his attempts to hold her, his pleas to think again. But that look, it wasn't the same as before. There wasn't the same certainty there, only despair. She stood up. She left the glass on the table. I need time, she said sharply. Victor stood up next. Time is a luxury, he remarked. You either choose or you stay where you are. Those words were the last straw. She chose. Everything was fine at first. Victor kept his word. She got the huge penthouse, the 24-hour staff, the opportunity to do what she'd always dreamed of doing. But something was bugging her. The night spent alone when Victor left for regular business meetings. The coldness in his voice when she asked too many questions. One day, she opened her closet and found a dress. Beautiful, expensive, but not hers. That dress looked too flashy, too far from her style. She asked Victor where it was from. You'll look great in it, he said, without explaining where it had come from. Lauren began to notice the little things. He stopped listening to her stories about the past, her plans. He was just providing everything she needed, expecting her to be beautiful. She missed the warmth, the sincerity that Alex had. A few months later, Lauren stood at the window of that very same penthouse, looking out at the same city lights. They used to fascinate her. Now they annoyed her. She saw her reflection in the glass. A woman in a gorgeous dress, with jewelry that weighed more than she could afford to imagine. But her eyes were empty. She picked up her phone. Alex was online. Lauren started to type a message, then stopped. What could she say to him? A simple, I'm sorry, wasn't enough. She realized she was past the point of no return. But still, she sent the message. I'm sorry. Can we talk? Alex read the message and put the phone down on the table. Lauren was once again trying to find a way out of the abyss she'd jumped into. But he was no longer the man who would wait for her with open arms. Alex closed his laptop, stood up, and walked toward the exit. He had a date. And that's where today's story ends. Thank you for watching to the end. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and comment. We'd love to discuss this story with you. See you in the next video.